So our MSW program mission, we're going to start at a high level and kind of go down from there. This is our mission statement as an MSW program at UW. So the MSW program at the University of Washington School of Social Work is dedicated to preparing professional social workers through rigorous, community-engaged, critically reflexive research, teaching, and learning. The program is grounded in our commitment to racial, economic, gender, and social justice informed by and for those at the social margins of our local, national, and global communities. We really value having a social justice lens in social work, and we understand that that has not always been the case in social work, but our goal as a program is to ensure that that social justice lens is used in our practice and our curriculum, and that you are prepared to apply that to your work as well beyond graduation. So why UW? Why would you choose UW? What are we all about? What's happening over here? There's a lot of great things and reasons why you would choose UW. One is that we have a really diverse student body. 55% of our students who started this fall are students of color, and almost half are first-generation college students. If you're a first-gen student, throw up a little emoji. I'm a first-gen student too. First-gen just means if neither parent has a graduate degree or a guardian from the US. I'm sorry, one moment, having a technical. Another reason to choose UW is that we have a dedicated mental health provider. This is unique to UW, I believe, or pretty unique. We have an in-house mental health specialist specifically for School of Social Work students that offers free 25-minute sessions that are unlimited in amount throughout the year. We also have UW campus-wide mental health services. Those are typically more limited, like maybe you can only book I think it's like 5 sessions a quarter or something along those lines. And they serve the whole university. So it's nice that we also have an in-house one exclusively for social work students. Another benefit of UW is our faculty. We really have amazing faculty at this university, 29 of whom have received UW Awards of Excellence for teaching, leadership, mentorship, and public service. I have some amazing faculty right now that I'm in classes with. We are home to over 600 practicum sites, so in the Seattle area and in the greater Washington state area. Practicum is a huge part of this program, which is basically internship. And we have many, many options to choose from across clinical, community, and policy work. We have a social work writing center. They offer, the students and the employees of the writing center have gone through the courses that you would be taking as an MSW student. So they have specific knowledge, not only of best practices in writing or drafting a policy memo or whatever you're working on, but specific knowledge of the course you're taking, the instructor, perhaps the curriculum, the assignments, the readings, those kinds of things, which can be really helpful. And they serve just social work students. So again, you don't have to go to the main university one where, I don't know, there's like econ majors or something else. We have a strong reputation. We are ranked among the top 10 schools of social work in the country. You'll have small class sizes here. So the average class size is about 15 to 24 students. So even though it's a large university, your class sizes are small. Your professor will know your name. We use a cohort model too. So you'll get to know a lot of the people in your same specialization or program. We have strong funding opportunities. Almost $6 million is awarded annually through the School of Social Work over course of traineeships, fellowships, which are scholarships, assistantships, and state and federal aid. We have 16 pioneering research centers just through the School of Social Work at UW. So there's plenty of research institutes and centers across the university, but just through social work, we have 16, including the Indigenous Wellness Research Institute, the Latino Center for Health, and many more. We have a lot of student groups for the School of Social Work as well. So while you can join university-wide clubs, we have some that are started through social work students and that are for social work students. As a student at UW, you do have access to all of those campus-wide resources as well, whether it's academic related, career center related. We have Leadership Without Borders who serve undocumented students. They provide community, they can help you navigate UW systems, resources. And we're in the heart of Seattle. So our campus is right in the middle of the city. So if you are enjoying city life, if that's something you want to seek out while you're here, you're in luck. I'm a local Seattle person. I'm from the suburbs, but I'm from the greater Seattle area. So happy to chat with anybody if you have questions about that. All right, so this is a cohort profile from 2025. So this is our fall, this is who was admitted accepted their offer and attended or started this fall. This varies every year depending on admissions numbers, who applies, who's admitted, who accepts their offer, all of that, but this is just a snapshot. Again, as you can see, pretty diverse cohort, especially compared to some of our other grad programs at the university or in the area. 24% of our students were out of state this year. So from 21 different states and across 6 countries, which is pretty impressive. The average age of students was 28, so pretty common for students to take quite a few years off between undergrad and grad school. But also not uncommon for students to go straight from undergrad to grad school. That's quite a variety there. We admitted a total of 308 students. That's across all programs. So we'll talk about these in a moment, but full-time, part-time programs, all of them. We have a high average amount of social service experience, which we'll talk about too, but that's because we, again, admit really diverse cohorts. So some people are doing career changes and just entering social work, or some people have worked in social work adjacent fields and now are coming to get their master's degree. So they'll have a lot of experience. So it really varies. And our overall acceptance rate across all programs, part-time, full-time, was 63% this year. And that varies again every year, depending on how many apply, how much space we have available, et cetera. But this is just a quick snapshot. All right, so our curriculum, kind of like I touched on at the beginning, is really rooted in a social justice lens, and these are some of the core principles we use in our curriculums, despite which MSW program or track you are in. And that includes honoring the First Peoples, centering actions to end white supremacy and racism, working for diversity, inclusion, equity, and justice, acknowledging intersectionality, valuing communities and interactions of care, respecting different ways of knowing, and practicing critical thinking and reflexivity about our profession. So again, this is where we really use these core principles guide how we create our curriculum, how we facilitate class discussions, our readings, practicum reflections. This is really what our MSW program is rooted in. So speaking of curriculum, across whichever program you do, and we'll dive into the programs, the different kinds in a moment, this is how our curriculum is structured at the UW. So we have generalist curriculum where you'll learn about micro, meso, and macro practice of social work. So work with individuals and families, work with communities, or work in admin and policy. You'll have coursework related to all of those areas. It's a generalist practicum. So your practicum or internship ideally will have a position where you are practicing, you're doing, I guess, like micro related activities, community and macro. So both your curriculum and your practicum are rooted in generalist curriculum. You're learning about the history of social work, the theoretical basis of the field of social work, the foundations, and especially related to poverty, systems of oppression, and social justice. And you're building like general skills and knowledge and also confidence in social work. A lot of folks in our program, unless you're in advanced standing, pretty much everybody's coming from a different area of discipline. It might be related, like psychology or sociology, but a lot of people are doing career changes too, or this might be really different. So this generalist curriculum is meant to really get you acquainted with the field. And then we have specialized curriculum, which you'll do in the second half of your time during the MSW program. In the specialized curriculum, all of your coursework is related to which specialization you choose. Again, we'll dive into those in a moment, but we have a specialization in clinical social work, so work with individuals and families, community-centered integrative practice, or we call it CCIP for short, which is our meso-level specialization, and then an administration and policy practice, which is our macro-level specialization, and we also call it APP for short. Despite which specialization you choose, all of your coursework during the specialized year or curriculum will be tailored to that. So if you're in the clinical track, pretty much all of your coursework, unless you take electives elsewhere, will be related to specifically clinical social work, for example. Your practicum will also be tailored to the specialization. So again, if you're a clinical social worker, your practicum will be more clinical. Maybe you're doing casework, maybe you're a hospital social worker, something along those lines. Whereas if you're in policy, it would be specifically related to that. So for example, I'm in the policy track and my practicum is for a state senator who has a master of social work. She's actually an alum from UW, but if you're in the clinical track, it would look very different. And if you're in the community centered track, it would also look different. You'll build advanced knowledge about social work especially through the framework of which specialization you choose. And if you're in advanced standing, meaning you have a Bachelor of Social Work or a Bachelor of Social Work, BSW or BASW, you would start in the specialized curriculum. Since your Bachelor's of Social Work would develop your generalist knowledge of the field, you would essentially skip that curriculum and start in the specialized. And you're admitted directly to your specialization as well. All right, so these are the three programs we offer at the at UW for the MSW program. We have our full-time program, which is an in-person, on-campus, full-time 2-year program for those who don't already have a bachelor's in social work. There's quite a variety of students in this program, whether you have a related degree in social sciences or we also have people that are doing total career shifts. We have our part-time program. So this is part-time, takes about 3 years to complete. This is also for those who don't have a bachelor's in social work. And you typically have evening coursework, and we have 2 schedule options available. We have an in-person one and an online track. And then we have advanced standing, which is specifically for those who have an accredited bachelor's of social work degree, so a BSW or a BASW. This is a full-time program as well. It takes about 11 months to complete, so just under a year. So our full-time program, begins fall quarter of each year. At UW, we use the quarter system, and fall quarter starts usually like the last week of September, which is pretty unique. I think most schools start in like August or early September. So full-time students start beginning of fall quarter. It's a 2-year program. You don't typically have classes in the summer unless it's an elective. You'll have classes about 2 to 3 days per week, and all of those specializations are available. So clinical, the CCIP, and policy. You'll have practicum during the first year about 1 to 2 days a week, and then during the second year about 2 to 3 days a week. So it does ramp up during your specialization. This program is also typically has the most amount of out-of-state students compared to our other program. That's not like an admissions preference or anything. That's just how it tends to be. Most of our out-of-state students are in the full-time program. And even though it is a full-time program, a lot of our students do work part-time. We don't recommend working more than about like 20 hours a week, just for your sake, for your sanity, for your mental health, and just given the human capacity. But it is very common to work part-time. So I'm in a full-time program right now, and I work about 15 to 18-ish hours a week. And that has been manageable. Our part-time program also begins during fall quarter. Like I mentioned, we have an online and an in-person option, which we'll dive into in a moment. This program is a 3-year program, or 9 to 11 quarters. The first year you do not have practicum, it's just classes. And then the second year you'll have practicum 1 to 2 days a week. And then the third year you'll have practicum about 2 to 3 days per week. In the part-time program, only the clinical specialization is available. So if you wanted to do one of the others, you would have to do a full-time program. Classes are in the evening, whether you're in the online or the in-person program. And a lot of our part-time students do maintain employment throughout the program during the later years. So like, as you can see in year 3, practicum is about 2 to 3 days a week. That does get busier, and some people tend to reduce their working hours to accommodate that. But it is much easier to work 20 hours a week or more during the part-time program than it would be in the full-time program. And especially since the classes are during the evening and only a couple days a week. This program is best for working professionals and those seeking something more flexible. You'll see a lot of like parents, for example, in this program or people who are trying to work full-time or closer to that. For example, this is a good program for you. So just to clarify, our part-time program, it's the same curriculum, same classes, pretty much same everything. The only difference is the modality you do it through, whether you could do online. Our online program is new. So our first online cohort will start this coming fall of 2026. But when we are admitting to it this year with applications due in January. In the online program, classes will be synchronous, so they will be in real time. It's not do at your own pace style. You do have to still be present and live. It'll just be over Zoom. You do have to have the ability to complete a practicum in Washington State. So maybe you don't live in Washington, maybe you live like on the border of like in Idaho or North Oregon, like if you're in Portland area or something, but can do a practicum in like Vancouver, Washington or South Washington, that would work. And this is best for working professionals, caregivers, community-based people who are unable to relocate or commute to the Seattle campus or to other campuses like Tacoma or something. If you are within proximity of Seattle campus and able to attend in person, then the evening program is probably best for you. The evening track is also part-time. It's synchronous, meaning you do have to be physically present live in class, but it's just in person and on campus at Seattle. Other than that, the curriculum for the part-time program is the same. Specialization, which is clinical, is the same. All of that, it's just whether you're completing it online versus in person. And classes in both of these are in the evening. So whether you're in the online program or the evening program, the in-person one, classes are typically between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. All right, and then advanced standing. This is for those who have a BSW or a BASW, so Bachelor in Social Work. This program begins in the middle of summer quarter. Our summer quarters at UW are kind of split in half, and so you would start in mid-July for this program instead of fall quarter. It's a full-time credit load, so which at UW is like 10 to 12 credits a quarter. So it is a full-time program. It lasts 11 months or 4 quarters, so just under a year. We would start mid-July and graduate in the following June. Practicum is 2 to 3 days per week, and you're entering the curriculum during that specialized portion like we looked at a moment ago. So you're basically just skipping generalized curriculum, going straight to your specialization. All of our specializations are offered for advanced standing since it's full-time, so clinical, policy, and CCIP. We have practicum 2 to 3 days per week and class about 2 days a week. And we do have a streamlined application available if you are a current UW BASW student. If you're an alum of our BASW program, I believe you do not qualify for the streamlined application, or if you have a BSW from somewhere else, you wouldn't qualify. And by streamlined, there's just a couple steps that you get to skip or that are easier to complete. And more information about the specifics is on our website. So if you are a current UW BSW student, definitely check that section out. All right, so this was kind of covered a moment ago, but this is a visual form of the schedules you would see. So our full-time program, you can see the days of the week you would roughly have classes, typically a practicum on Monday, Tuesday, and then classes Wednesday through Friday in the first year. And then that would flop a little bit when you have your specialized year where you'd have practicum Monday through Wednesday and classes Thursday through Friday. For the part-time program, they're in the evening. Typically, you start out with no practicum and then you add practicum hours each year you go on, and it's a 3-year program. Classes are in the evening for that part-time program versus in the full-time program, they'll be during the day. So 8:30 a.m. to 5:20 p.m. roughly, unless you take an elective in the evening program or something. And then for advanced standing, full-time programs, and so you're basically just doing the second year of the full-time program. You'll have practicum Monday through Wednesday, and then classes on Thursdays and Fridays. And also classes will be during the day, so like 8 or 8:30 a.m. to 5:30. Won't be much in the evening unless you take an elective outside of that. Yeah. All right, so we touched on this a little bit earlier, but these are our specializations. So again, we've got our clinical specialization, which is micro-level social work. This is offered in all of our program options, so advanced standing, full-time, and part-time. All your curriculum is related to work with individuals and families, and you're prepared to work in a variety of clinical settings. So I think a common misconception I see is that this is the therapy track. And while plenty of our alumni do pursue careers in therapy, or there might be some coursework related to it, it's not exclusively related to therapy. You'll learn about a variety of clinical work, social work in a variety of clinical settings. So it could be therapy and counseling, but could also be casework, could be hospital social work, anything along those lines. Our community-centered integrative practice track, which is we call CCIP for short, is the meso level. So it's work with groups. This is offered in the full-time programs only. So the 2-year full-time program, or if you're in advanced standing, it's offered there as well. It's work with groups and communities, and you're also prepared to work in a variety of settings within community work. So whether that's nonprofit work, you might be facilitating groups, you might be doing more organizing work. The curriculum is tailored to prepare you for a variety of those settings. And then finally, our macro specialization is called Administration and Policy. We call it APP for short, Administration and Policy Practice. This is also only offered in full-time programs, and it prepares you for work in government, nonprofit leadership, policy, and other macro-related settings. So some sample practicum sites for each of these, just to get an idea of where you might be placed. For clinical, Asian Counseling and Referral Services, or ACRS for short, is a common one. Seattle Public Schools, a lot of clinical social workers have placements in schools. Swedish Family Medicine, I definitely know some hospital social workers as well. Downtown Emergency Center, Washington Center for Comprehensive Rehabilitation. For CCIP, some common practicum sites could be Counseling Center for Sexual Minorities, Communities in Schools, Youth East Side Services, City of Seattle. And then for admin and policy, Partners for Our Children, which is a research center through the School of Social Work. Social Justice Fund Northwest, Solid Ground is a big one. The Washington State Senate, that's where I am. So I am interning for a state senator right now, who is a social worker. And then City of Seattle. You'll also see often that there's plenty of sites or plenty of organizations locally that conduct like micro, meso, and macro level social work, or at least some combo of those. So it's definitely possible too that if you're like at a local nonprofit, like at a school, for example, that maybe you have that they offer clinical specializations or practicums, but also CCIP related ones. So some of these, there might be overlap for sure in the site, depending on just what program in that organization you're working with, for example. All right, the application, what everybody wants to know about. At a glance, this is our application timeline. So the application is open. It's open now. It's available online. You can make an account, go into the portal now and see what it looks like. I definitely recommend doing that sooner rather than later, just to get a feel. For our full-time programs and advanced standing, the application is due January 15th at 11:59 p.m. This is also the priority deadline for part-time applications. And then we accept part-time applications on a space available basis through February 12th at 11:59 p.m. And then admissions decisions will be sent between February and March of 2026. And then, like we mentioned, you would start the programs in either fall quarter for most programs or summer for advanced standing. I do strongly recommend submitting your application a little bit before 11:59 p.m. on the deadline, to reduce stress for you, for your sanity and well-being, and also to accommodate for any tech issues that come up, for any last minute somethings. Yeah, these are the final deadlines. And also, I will say there's also no priority given, like if you submit today versus January 15 or at 11:59, you won't be extra preferred because you submitted in October versus January. Our eligibility to apply is that you need a 4-year bachelor's degree. If you're applying to advanced standing, that must be in an accredited social work program, but if you're not, just needs to be a 4-year bachelor's degree. It could be in anything. A 3.0 GPA, although there is some flexibility there. And English proficiency if English is not your first language, or if you had a bachelor's degree taught in another language. The full details are on our website, but this at a glance is the basic eligibility requirements. All the little details are online on our MSW application page under eligibility. And then our steps to apply, we have our online, our application for the MSW program is online. There's a portal in which you apply to. Everything is submitted digitally, including transcripts and all of that. Nothing is on paper. You'll submit unofficial transcripts from any colleges or universities you've earned a degree from. We don't need high school transcripts, or if you took like a one-off course at a community college, that will likely be reflected on wherever you got a bachelor's degree from. So typically don't need to submit that, and unofficial is totally fine. Relevant experience. This is optional, and we'll touch on this in a minute too. It's optional to have social service experience, but it is recommended. You'll see online it recommends about 2,000 hours, which is about a year of full-time work. We do admit people with a variety of experience. Like I mentioned earlier, some people have worked like at a nonprofit and social worky type areas for like 10 years and are coming, so they have a lot of experience, but some people are either straight out of undergrad or are doing a career change and don't have a lot of experience. So that's why it's not required, but it definitely can strengthen your application if you do have some. We have short answer questions. We have 2 of those, and they really prompt you to reflect, to self-reflect. That's a big skill in social work, and that's something that we look for in the admission. I say we, I'm not reviewing applications, but the admissions committee would look for, is self-reflection and your understanding of systems of oppression. The personal statement, that's the bigger piece. It's about 2-ish pages. And then if you're in advanced standing, there's an additional page you would submit about your specialization rationale, and instructions for that are online. The personal statement is a lot more general, and the exact prompt is on our website, but it's pretty much about what is bringing you to social work, why you want a UW, why you want your MSW from UW, and what you would like to do with that. We do have a resume too, that's also 1 to 2 pages, and that can include a broad array of experiences. It doesn't just need to have social work related experience. So your resume should include like academic history, volunteer experience, awards or accomplishments, special skills, your job history, and it could be across a broad array of arenas and areas of expertise. And then we also ask for 3 references, or 3 recommenders. That's a language error on my end. 3 recommenders. So 3 letters of recommendation. We strongly recommend having an academic reference. And then it's up to you who the others are. And we'll talk about those in a minute as well. But at a glance, these are the main steps to apply. Some notes, tips and tricks for me. We're not going to go through each piece more in depth than what I just did, since the details and the instructions online for each are pretty thorough. But just some tips on each of those. Like I said, I recommend starting and submitting your application at least a little bit early for your sanity. Again, on our end, like if you submit tomorrow or in January before the deadline, doesn't give you like preferences or anything, but for your sake, please do. The 2,000 hours of social service experience, just as a reminder, is again recommended, not required. We do have a guide online too on our webpage under the application instructions about examples of what might count as social service experience, but typically it's anything where you're working to get a community access to a resource they might already have, addressing a social justice issue, something along those lines. In the personal statement and across your materials, kind of like what I mentioned for the personal statement is I call it your like MSW timeline. I really want to know what like either personal, like lived, academic, professional, whatever it may be, what's bringing you to social work. Why do you want a master's social work, and why do you want it from UW? And what do you see doing with it? Also answer the prompt like more directly, but if you have those 3 pieces, that can really strengthen your paper. And you don't need like a 5-year plan or anything when you're thinking about what's ahead, but if you want to address a certain social justice issue or work with a certain community, that can really, some specificity around those areas can really help. We also ask for 3 letters of recommendation. Some tips and tricks just from advising and things. Ask them before you designate them as a recommender. It sounds like common sense, but we have had people that just like in the portal, you just type in the recommender's like name and title and email, and it sends them an email, and they submit all their materials through a separate portal. You won't see it. But some recommenders have just gotten the email and had no idea you had designated them as a recommender. So I recommend having a conversation with them first. Variety is good. An academic reference, again, is strongly recommended, but I know a lot of people are coming to grad school several years after undergrad and maybe haven't stayed in touch with professors. So ultimately use your best judgment. You can have professional references. If you have social service experience, maybe like a practicum supervisor or your volunteer coordinator or someone from that arena would be good. As long as they're not like your mom, your family, your best friend. They should be like professional or volunteer academic related. Letters of recommendation are also due at the application deadline, and it's your responsibility to help and remind those recommenders to get that in. It is always really unfortunate when like someone's application isn't complete because they don't have their recommenders. So I recommend asking them early. This is a good time to do so, to give them enough time to write your letter of recommendation. And you can submit your application even if they don't have theirs in yet. So if you're done tomorrow with your application, but your recommender is still working on their letter, that's totally fine, as long as they submit it by the application deadline. And then my last like tip, word of advice is this is so corny, but it's to believe in yourself because you've got this. I know that's really typical, but I know grad school can be really intimidating. I'm a first generation college student and I do have like background work experience in higher education, which has helped, but I know for myself, I never, like before the last couple years, never planned on going to grad school. That was never a thought. And I know it can be really intimidating. Um, but having confidence will also show on your application. Can give you peace of mind. And it's incredible that you're at this point being able to apply. So I just recommend, yeah, being proud of yourself and how far you've come to date. And that can really, having some of that can really shine through in the application, and also surrounding yourself with community that's really supportive. Um, whether they're community that helps you review your application or just gives you words of encouragement or support in other ways, that can also really help. All right, funding. Um, We have like I mentioned earlier, we have a more in-depth funding recording available on our YouTube channel. If you just type in on YouTube, like UW School of Social Work, there's an admissions playlist and you should see it in there. And then we also have one linked on our funding webpage online. But just at a glance, these are the funding opportunities that we offer. There's financial aid, which includes FAFSA or WASFA, which you can still apply for at the grad level and should. It often is required. A lot of scholarships and other funding opportunities require you to have filled those out, so definitely do. Just know that they do tend to be more loan heavy in their awards at the graduate level than at undergrad. So if you got a lot of grants in undergrad through FAFSA, for example, that may or may not be the case for grad school, just as a heads up. Excuse me. Traineeships, these are conditional funding programs. So we have a couple, the Child Welfare Training and Advancement Program, or we call it CTAP, or you'll see CWTAP for short. For example, these are conditional funding opportunities in a specific area of social work. So for the child welfare one, for example, you would have a practicum at Department of Children, Youth and Families, DCYF. You would commit to working there for a couple of years after graduation in exchange for them covering most or all of your tuition. So it is conditional. And if you don't complete those required few years after graduation working there, you would have to pay the funding they covered back. So just as a heads up. Fellowships is a fancy word for scholarships. We have departmental scholarships offered. It's available in our MSW online portal. So after you submit your application, it will appear, and it's also due at the application date, which is another reason to submit at least a little bit early. And you do have to file for either FAFSA or WASFA to be considered for this form. It's called the funding consideration form, and that's one form you can fill out that you can apply, that you can use to apply for all of our departmental scholarships. And the average award is about 7,500. Additional sources are on our website. They include assistantships, which is what my role is right now. So I work part-time with the Office of Admissions, about 20 hours a week. And it comes with a solid amount of funding. Most of your tuition is covered and you get an hourly wage, which is incredible. It also means that it's a very competitive role. But we do have some through the School of Social Work. We have 2 positions in our admissions office, a couple in our writing center, and a couple in our tech center. So if you have background tech knowledge, that would be really cool. We have external funding linked on our website too. So either through UW, like other departments, or that apply to regardless of your major or school you're in. There's on-campus jobs, and then paid practicum is another opportunity. Not all of our practicum sites are paid. Some of them are, some aren't. It's kind of, and the extent varies by site, but one way we call it agency of employment to do is if you currently work at a site, like in a job, like full-time or part-time that would qualify as a practicum site, you can work with our Office of Field Education to have that also be counted as your practicum so that you're being paid for it. Again, there's more information on our website, and our recordings go a lot more into depth about it, or you can book an advising appointment with us, which I'll talk about later. But at a glance, these are our primary funding opportunities we have for our UW MSW program. Oh, I forgot to put the slide. I already explained the funding consideration form, but again, this is the one form. It appears at the end of your application when you submit it in the portal, and it applies you for all of our departmental scholarships with the average award being 7,500. In the portal, it's called post-application questions as a section. It's a UW requirement, but I definitely recommend applying for this. All right, that was a lot of information. Again, thank you all for attending. That is it for tonight's presentation. If you have questions, I will stop sharing my screen in a moment and we will answer those. You can scan this QR code to connect with us. You can follow us on Instagram or social media at UW Social Work. You can send an email to us at uwsocialwork@uw.edu, and one of our lovely team members will help you out. Or you can set up a virtual advising appointment. They're about 20 minutes long, and you would meet with either Monse, the other student information specialist, myself, or one of our recruiters, and we can talk more in depth if you have more specific questions. And then also at that link, you can register for our upcoming events. So on November 3rd, we have a part-time MSW info session. So if you're interested, for example, in like the online part-time program, this is a good session to attend. We have a systems level social work alumni panel on the 19th. This one I'm really excited for. We have alumni macro social workers coming, including the chief of staff for Washington State Democrats. It'll be very cool. So if you're interested in more systems level social work, definitely attend. And then we also have a CTAP and admissions, so that child welfare training and advancement program, and admissions info session on December 9th at 5. I'll give it a second for folks to scan the QR code. And then thank you so much for attending.
Shyla,
Okay.
sorry. Hi everyone. So I am gonna kind of throw some questions at Shyla just that were in the Q&A.
Yeah, sounds good.
So one question was, if you're a career changer, what experience are you looking for if you don't necessarily have social service experience?
Question. So what social services experience we're looking for in the application if you're changing careers?
Yeah, or what general experience might be relevant? What are some things that folks can think about in their application?
Yeah, that's a great question. Volunteer experience is really common. So maybe you've worked like, I don't know, in tech or something that's maybe not super social worky, but you volunteered in your community. Social service experience can be paid or unpaid. So if you have volunteer experience in any area, that would be great. Some common examples are like working at a food bank, for example. If there's like mentoring youth is something I've seen, like if you're working in school systems or after school programs. Any experience where you're working to further social justice for a community, working to get them access to a resource that's maybe harder for them to access, or working with a community who has systemically had a harder time accessing whatever resource or area you're working in, or working towards a social justice issue. Maybe you're volunteering with like 350 Seattle, which does climate justice advocacy, for example. If you're more macro, it could also be voter outreach. If you're doing voter registration, if you're campaigning for a candidate or for, especially for like an issue that relates to social work, like a specific policy or something or proposition that would be on a ballot, that would also count. I'm also happy if you have like really specific examples that you're not sure of, to feel free to send us an email, or book an advising appointment and we can help you with those. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing and then we can just do this a little more casually.
So Shyla, one question from Abby. What do most students do during the summer quarter?
Oh, good question. For if you're talking about advanced standing students, it's a summer bridge program that is it's like 5 weeks long. And it's basically meant to reorient you to social work since a lot of students have taken several years between undergrad and then. So you have general social work, you'll talk about social work research, things like that. If you're talking about like you're a general like 2-year full-time student or a part-time student where you don't have typical scheduled summer quarter classes, you can either take electives, a lot of like you could either at the School of Social Work or elsewhere, or you could live your life. A lot of students use that time to work, to catch up with their friends and family. Yeah, but a lot of students like work more too, like if you're in the full-time program, especially since you can only work typically limited hours during the academic year, a lot of students work too. Or you can gain more social service experience.
Thanks, Shyla. So I just want to jump in because there were several questions asked throughout about the new online option and whether or not you can be doing that out of state. So I'll just kind of repeat for the whole audience because I think it's important to share. The intention of our online program is really to provide greater access to the Washington workforce to pursue their MSW. Currently, this is our very first cohort. It's a pilot, essentially. We're kind of ramping things up to launch next fall. So there are a lot of things that will be limited, particularly in the first year. So we are looking for 25 students. It's a tiny cohort. So that's something to consider. But right now, that's not really the goal is not really to have students that are completing the program outside of the state. So I just kind of want to share that because that is something that came up a couple times. It is a requirement to complete the master's program practicum requirements in Washington state.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I'm just gonna go through the open Q&A questions, if that's okay, Jen. And folks, like, obviously take care of yourselves. You need to hop off, or if you don't have any questions, no pressure, stick around, but I know it can always be useful to hear what other folks are asking. I see in the Q&A, will we receive a notification once the recommendation has been submitted so we know if we need to remind our letter writers? That's a good question. I think so. Jen, can you confirm? I know I literally applied myself. I'm trying to remember. I think you do, or you can at least log into the portal and see if they've submitted.
Yeah, sorry. I'm working through the questions as quickly as I can. Yes. So if the question, I think what I heard you say is to see if your recommender submitted, all you need to do is log in and it will show you a status update. You can actually also resend the message to them. So let's say you're like, I don't know if they are going to do it. You can ping them again. Obviously, I would recommend reaching out to them more personally instead of just bombarding them with multiple emails from the graduate school. But yes, you'll be able to see that in there. And if anything you're ever not sure, curious, just call us or give us an email at UW Social Work and we will check for you.
So, thanks, Jen. Is there a waiver for English language proficiency test for someone who studied in English from primary school to college? Yes, so there are the English language proficiency is only required, I believe. The specifics are on our website, but it's only required if, for example, if your undergraduate degree was not taught in English, or if you did school that was not in English, like after the like 8th grade, I think, or something along those lines. The specifics are on our website, and it's like a university-wide requirement. Okay,
Yeah,
Jen.
and for folks that so in the chat, I dropped a link earlier. I keep trying to copy it again and I for some reason not working. But basically the graduate school's requirement, so it's the comment that I posted at 6:34 p.m. That will tell you all about English proficiency. This is not something that we set up. This is the graduate school's requirement. So there are several ways you can essentially meet that requirement. And everybody's situation is different. So we definitely encourage you to just check that out.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Okay, for those looking to become therapists, how will the clinical track prepare us to become therapists? What post-grad work do you think we'll need in order to be prepared? And do you think a different master's degree would serve aspiring therapists better? That's a great question, and something that um honestly I wish we got more. But so you can become a therapist through the MSW program. It's just that not all of your coursework will in the clinical track will not all of it will specifically be tailored to therapy. You'll have coursework related to it, but you'll also have coursework related to casework, serving certain communities and working with individual families, all of those. How will it prepare us to become therapists? Some people do have practicum sites as therapists or counselors. I know plenty of people who have, or at least like in the school setting, for example, like as a school social worker or therapist. So it definitely is a track through here. For post-grad work, if you are seeking, especially if you're seeking like licensure requirements vary by state. So if you're planning on practicing in another state, check the requirements. It will be different than Washington's. But for us, I believe you need 2,000 hours of supervised therapy work after graduation from your MSW program, and to then do the licensure exam and be a licensed social worker. So that's some post-grad work that you would need to do. It involves an exam. And yeah, those 2,000 hours of supervised work. Other grad programs, yeah, if you 1,000% know you want to be a social or a therapist, that's what you want to do. You're not really interested in exploring casework or other areas of clinical social work. A master's in counseling on it would have more curriculum tailored to that. All of your, like in a master's of counseling degree, all of your curriculum would be tailored specifically to therapy strategies. So that would be something to explore if that's like what you want to do. I think the benefit of the social work program is that it's more broad. So let's say you do therapy for 10 years and you burn out, or you're like, I want to try something new, or I'm sick of this system. I want to work in like mental health policy, and address these at the root cause or the macro level. Having the master of social work degree gives you a lot more flexibility in that range. Or if you just wanted to pivot from therapy to other clinical social work, like hospital social work or something. So the social work degree is a lot more broad, gives you options if you want to pivot throughout your career, explore things. But if you want your coursework to all be like really therapy specific, a master's in counseling would be a much better degree. We don't offer that at UW. And I'm actually not that well versed in the programs in Masters of Counseling in Washington State. So just as an FYI, but you can do therapy with social work. The benefit is that social work clinical is a lot more broad, gives you more career options down the road if you want to change. But it is true that it won't have exclusively therapy related classes. Um, Sorry, I feel like I'm doing like an Instagram live or something with these. This is unique for me. Um, how is social work different from clinical mental health counseling? I think that relates to the previous question, but Lisa, if you're still here, let me know if there's something in my previous answer that you'd like to clarify. Maybe Lisa's not here. Also, feel free to, in this section, like feel free to unmute and stuff. Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. Could work at children's behavioral health agencies be okay for experience? Additionally, would working at somewhere like Harborview as a nursing assistant be beneficial? That's a good question. I would say definitely children's behavioral health agencies is definitely relevant social work experience. A lot of our practicum sites are in behavioral health with youth, so that's definitely a benefit. I think for medical, like I don't know where I went, like for nursing experience, I think it would be beneficial and something you could at least include on your resume. I don't know that it would be direct social service experience. It like nursing is a different field than social work. But we would still see that on your resume and you could still talk about that in your written materials and how, for example, like how that's led you to wanting to pursue social work. Is that helpful in answering that question? I'm sorry, they're getting rearranged as we're answering some
I
of
know
these.
they're sort of flowing all over. So I would also say that, there is a link that Sarah posted for kind of sorting out relevant experience. So in large part, it's kind of making the justification that what you were doing was related to understanding human behavior, familiarity with nonprofits or the social service sector, or serving marginalized populations. So if you can connect that to that experience, then it would be relevant.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen.
And I just want to kind of tackle, because there were a couple of different questions sort of about English proficiency, about transcript evaluation for international students. All of these questions really could be answered on the website and and I'll repost it again, the link from the graduate school. Again, these are not things that we oversee or have a whole lot of experience or knowledge in, because the graduate school actually manages those processes. So the best source would be to go there, and I'll post that again.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Um, yeah, that's definitely has a lot more specifics and is a very involved process or can be. Um, just looking through to see what we've answered already. Will receive yeah, we did that one. Okay, I think we did the rest of the open ones in the Q&A, so I'm going to the chat now. Can I use my current job as a case manager for my practicum? Perhaps, like likely. That's what's called agency of employment. And that's where I know I touched on it really briefly, but if you are, yeah, you're currently working in social work, doing social worky related things. There are specific requirements and tasks you would have to do as that are defined by our Office of Field Education that I'm not versed in the specifics. And if you're being supervised by someone who has an MSW, doesn't have to be from UW, but who has a Master of Social Work, you can talk with the Office of Field Education after you're admitted to see if your current job would count. A lot of times you might have to add some tasks to it, but you can still like make your job your practicum, or you might have to put in a couple extra hours. Like if you're going to work 20 hours a week at your current job, but maybe it doesn't have a lot of macro stuff and you need more macro stuff for your generalist practicum, you might have to work like 25 hours a week or something or whatever it may be, to get that extra experience in. But likely depends on the kind of casework you're doing and who's supervising you and all of that. And that's something that, yeah, as admissions, we don't coordinate practicum, like sites or placements or anything, which is why I'm not as well versed in this. But, after you apply, if you're admitted and you accept your offer and all of that, then that's a good time to coordinate with our Office of Field Education who manages practicum sites. So you'll have basically a specific advisor for practicum, and then you'll have a separate advisor for like course related stuff. And when you're in the specialized year, your practicum advisor person is related to your specialization. So like mine is specifically does policy related practicums. Cool. All
There was
right,
a
I'm seeing.
question in the chat. Is it possible to switch from a part-time program to a full-time or vice versa? So the short answer is there's always possibilities. We do not recommend that. It's really not advantageous to you. You'll likely end up spending more money. So we always tell folks to apply to the program that is their first choice. That should be, the strategy. There is a formal process, but there is no guarantee. And so really start with the program that you plan to complete.
Yeah, it's a great question. And also, kind of in a similar vein, in the application, you'll notice we do ask for specialization preference. If you're applying to like the 2-year full-time program or the part-time program, everybody's clinical, so never mind. If you're applying to the 2-year full-time program, that's just to kind of gauge your interest in which specializations you're most interested in. I believe it'll ask you to rank them. It's not a formal commitment. So if you put like your top is clinical now, but then later you have a change of heart and you're like, never mind, I want to do macro social work or something, you can do that. You don't have to commit until partly through your first year. But if you're in advanced standing, it is a commitment that you're making. You're like directly applying not only to advanced standing, but to that specialization. So you're applying to policy or applying to CCIP or clinical. I see, oh, okay, Jen answered that one. You're fast. This program offer an application fee waiver. It looks like Sarah has covered that, but if you have more questions, let me know. Yes, this is being recorded right now, and we'll send an email out with the recording. Yeah, as soon as we can. I will edit out some of the beginning awkwardness of me setting up the stuff, but other than that, yeah. Oh, thank you. All right, I'm looking and seeing Sarah and Jen are super speedy, so it looks like a lot of them have been answered, but if there's stuff that hasn't, feel free to either boost it or feel free to unmute or raise your hand or something, and I'm happy to get to those too.
I'm not sure if you did this already, but are there any research opportunities while in the MSW program?
Oh, good question. They are not directly built in. So like I think some programs like require like a research project and stuff, but there are definitely opportunities. One would be to do a thesis. A thesis in our Master of Social program is not required, but it is optional. So if you wanted to do a thesis, if there's an area of interest you have and you want to pursue more research stuff, you can definitely do that. And you can work with our Office of Student Services, who works with current students, to set that up. So we have those 16 research institutes. Some of them offer practicum placements. So I know a couple people in my program are at those sites. And there's also like other practicum sites in the area that aren't through our research institutes, but like have research related practicum. So that would be another way to get research experience. Or in the past too, we've had students kind of just like there's a specific faculty member at a research center that they really like their work and want to hop in on a project with them, you can reach out directly to them and see if they have opportunities once you're a student. I wouldn't do that now as a prospective student. You probably won't get answered. They tend to like, they want to get more engaged in those conversations, like with students who are they know are going to attend UW, who've been admitted, who've accepted their offer and are like set to start in the fall or summer. So yes, there are. And then you will have a couple research classes too. I believe you have at least two, if you're in the full-time program, one in the first year and one in the second year. So there's some curriculum related to that as well. And if you want to do a deeper dive, you could even take electives in other departments too, like if there's a public policy research class or public health or something, you can also do that. So there's options also available for part-time students who are in the clinical track. The research classes are, and if you want to, the thesis is, I'm assuming you're asking related to research, and those are, your practicum site would probably not be, like, at least your general practicum might be research focused, but your specialized one for clinical work probably wouldn't. They would want you to do more clinical practice in that, I would imagine. But the other ones I mentioned, yes. Yeah, I think like the practicum placements that are more researchy or tend to be more like macro specifically, probably not as much CCIP or clinical. That's a macro-y type thing. There's two separate sites for. Oh, good question. I know, Jen, you're typing, but I can talk about this too, the two separate practicums. During the generalist year, so if you're in the 2-year full-time program, or sorry, we just renamed the programs, that's why I'm hesitating and looking away for a second. The 2-year full-time program, yes, you have two practicums, one for generalist curriculum and one for specialized, and that's same for the part-time program. So you have one generalist practicum where at that site you would do some micro, some meso, and some macro related stuff. And then your specialized practicum is typically a different site. In some cases, it could be the same site, but their placement and your activities would be different. And then that one is specifically related to your specialization. So if you're in CCIP, it's specifically like group facilitation and community work. They can be at the same site or they can be different. And I think it's nice to have two. I think an advantage, especially if you're exploring areas of social work, is to really take advantage of that intern kind of hat you're wearing. And like maybe if you have some experience working in schools and you're like, I've never worked in group facilitation, or I'd really love to try something kind of policy related or research related, it's a good opportunity to try something new in the program, like as an intern, especially during your first year. And then you could be like, wow, that was amazing, I loved it, I want to pursue that kind of area for my next practicum. Or maybe you're like, dang, never mind, that was tough, I don't want to do that. And then now you know. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of explore different options.
Yeah, I'm gonna take so somebody asked about career changers earlier as well. Um, and this is just my 2 cents as an admissions person. Um, if you don't have a lot of experience, you just don't have a lot of experience. And that is not something you can do a whole lot about in the next 3 months. So what you can do, though, is articulate why you have moved in this direction. What has motivated you? What has propelled you? What do you hope the MSW will help you to do? If you're clear about that in your application, that is really what we're looking for. It's very helpful if you can tie that to maybe some past experience, even if it was a very limited volunteer experience, as Shyla mentioned earlier. But the way to boost your application is really to have strong recommenders who could talk about your fit with the profession. So people that know something about social work, probably not necessarily people that were in your previous career, but someone, maybe that is in your network and you've worked with in some capacity that can speak to that. But yeah, essentially you just want to answer the question so that we walk away understanding why it is that you're choosing to pursue social work at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. That's super helpful. Oh, the shaping systems event. True, that is not on our website yet. Thank you. Thanks for flagging that. That will be up soon. We have a new website calendaring system that we are adjusting to, so thank you for your patience. It will be up soon. The event is on November 18th. I think it was 18th at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So hopefully that's easier for East Coast folks. But it will be up soon. Or if you subscribe to on our admissions homepage, if you subscribe to our email campaigns, we will also send plugs about that. We send upcoming events in those. We do like student highlights and features, application tips, those kinds of things. So you could also do that. Oh, Sarah linked it in the chat. Great. Even if you're not like dead set on policy, like I think it would still be a good panel to learn about what macro social work is all about. Because that's what kind of makes this program more unique compared to like a master of counseling or psychology or something like that, is that we have that micro work, but also meso and macro, and even clinical work is rooted in systems level thinking and systems of oppression that have set up our landscape that we're working in. So yeah, it can still be really cool to attend and just see what alumni are doing. There's some really cool alum that'll be there.
Did you answer Rick's question?
I mean, I don't know. Let me,
I don't think
I'm
so.
scrolling
So
through.
essentially, I mean, I don't think it's a loaded question. We just don't have good answers. So, what is the rate at which students are offered jobs during practicums or before graduation? I do think it's very common. I don't have a specific number to quantify, but it is something we often hear from our students. So, hopefully that helps, but it is very probable.
Thanks. Would working as an admissions caseworker at a psychiatric hospital count as social work experience? Probably. In the application, I'm saying that because I don't have personal experience in that area, but you can describe, like, you do briefly describe how each social service experience you're listing, how that relates to social work in the application. So if you're doing social work related activities, that could count. I would say, again, look at that guide on our website for what counts. If anything, if you put it in there and your admission reviewer is like, yeah, that doesn't really count, they'll just look at your other experience you listed or something and your other materials. So it wouldn't be like the end of the world, but yeah, I would say probably. Especially if the tasks you're doing are social work related. Like maybe if you work at um like a counseling place, but you're doing mostly admin work, or you're not doing social work activities at that location, that probably wouldn't count as social work. So think about also not just the site, but the activities that you're doing in that role. What is the difference between social work and counseling psychology? Great question. Social work is really, oh, can people still see me? Sorry, I'm having a computer.
Yeah, you're good.
There we go. Sorry, I had a little computer freeze there. Um, Social work is really rooted in systems level thinking and addressing systems as they impact individuals, families, communities, policies. So even if you're in clinical, you're going to be learning a lot about macro level social work and the systems that are impacting those you're working with. So counseling and psychology are really, like, psychology is going to be a lot about brain science. So like, for example, like if you want to work with people who are affected by addiction, in psychology, you're going to learn a lot about the brain science, the neurons firing or not firing, what that looks like related to addiction and recovery. In social work, you're going to be connecting them like as a caseworker to like maybe you're leading a support group, maybe you're like after addiction, maybe a lot of people are having trouble, or maybe if they're actively struggling holding a job or reconnecting with family and loved ones or navigating resources to get like stable housing or a lot of things. I'm kind of visualizing like you and the client, and then you're spidering out like, can we get you food? Can we get you education? Can we get you like all these services? And psychology, it's going to be very clinical, very brain sciencey. I'm not being that specific because I haven't studied psychology, but does that help a little bit? Oh yeah, and Jen also linked some stuff in response to that. All right, so it is 7:15, so I am gonna let folks go and enjoy your night, but thank you so much for attending. I'll put our admissions email in the chat again, so please do feel free to oh, Jen just did it faster than me. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time. You can book an advising appointment, send us an email, give us a call, subscribe to our emails, and attend another event, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, thank you for being here. Best of luck with your application, and yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if more questions come up.